The Town host former Championship leaders West Bromwich Albion at Kenilworth Road on Friday night to preview the Friday Night Lights game. Alongside me, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, it's Halloween the night before, but let's hope there's nothing scary about this occasion.
You ready to scream?
Other horror movies may or may not be mentioned after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which as you all know is shortlisted for the Best Football League podcast in this year's Football Content Awards. And this season we are sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I said before the intro, we are previewing Luton Town versus West Bromwich Albion, Kenilworth Road, Friday night, 8 p.m, Sky Sports Football if you don't have a ticket to the game, and I've got Jimbo alongside me as always. This looked like a really tough game sort of a month ago. Maybe not so much now given that they're without a win in 6, but then when you add in what's just happened to us in the Midlands last weekend, what do we think of it all?
They don't score many goals, but they also don't concede many goals. And quite frankly, given what happened at Coventry, I'd take a ball draw, goalless stalemate all day long.
When you said they don't score many goals, I thought you was going to follow that up with the caveat that they don't come up against our defence very often. But thankfully, you didn't come up with that caveat.
No, but you did.
Well, people out there will be disappointed if one of us didn't. That's for sure. We've previewed games recently where we've had lots of good memories. I mean, even Sheffield United away, we'd had lots of good memories from recently. I can't really remember many against West Brom, though, unfortunately. It's not a fixture that's always kind to us. I mean, for example, the last time it took place was a replica of Saturday where we went 2 up and let it slip and lost 3-2.
Yep, remember that very well. Yeah, well, I mean, these things have got to change at some point, haven't they? And they've got to learn from what went disastrously wrong in Coventry. And you just hope that they do in the same way that they did from the Sheffield United performance. And, maybe, we recorded the last one 24 hours after that game, or a bit more, actually, because it was 12:30 kickoff. And even then, I was still raging. Maybe it's that there's going to be some bumps in the road still, but those two performances still only yielded 3 points against Watford and Sunderland, and maybe we weren't out the woods as much as perhaps we might have thought we were. But the only way to rectify it and change things is to learn from what happened in Coventry and not do that ever again, because I'm bored of that.
Yeah, I think we both are. I mean, the good thing would be if we're in a position to learn from it, i.e. we're 2-0 up. Because as you mentioned at the start of the podcast, they don't concede many. 3rd best defensive record in the Championship. Thankfully, they've not come up against our physical 2 centre forwards very often, but one of the reasons why they've got the 3rd best defensive record in the Championship is their defence are quite good at dealing with physical balls. Bartley and I think it's usually Semi Ajayi, isn't it? Very good at dealing with crosses. Of course, our cross output in this game is going to be heavily impacted. We'll come on to that shortly because of suspensions. But let's quickly have a little look at our opponents, West Brom. Just the one goal in those games in October. Haven't won in 6. Their only goal was against Oxford, who, as we saw, are anything but watertight at the back. Failed to score against Cardiff at the weekend. Haven't scored against teams like Blackburn, who themselves are conceding quite a few goals. So they are struggling up front. Yet when you look at the scorers list, they've got the 2nd top scorer in the division in Josh Madger.
Yeah, and right now that doesn't feel like it bodes particularly well, because what did we say again in the preview for the Coventry one? Don't go up there and give them their leg up when they're performing. The performances weren't so good and they were sort of languishing down there in the bottom half as well. What happened? That happened. So it just, if anything's got to change, it's being that sort of soft touch for teams that need it.
Indeed. Yes, definitely. I guess the good thing, though, is if you take Madger out of the equation, there aren't many goals in this West Brom. I mean, there aren't many goals in them full stop, but there aren't many in them anyway. I think he's got 7 goals for the season. 3 of them came on the opening day of the season at QPR. So he's only scored 4 in 11 since then, assuming he's played every game. So it's not like he's massively prolific. He just ran into QPR at the right time on the first day of the season. But even so, he's second highest scorer in the league. You'd be stupid to not focus your attention on him. So Mark McGuinness, and it'll have to be Mark McGuinness, has to keep him very, very quiet.
He does. I think Justin Madger is a very good player. Regardless of where the goals have come from, I'd like anyone of Luton ilk to have scored 7 goals so far this season. So I think, he's got pace, and he went out to France, didn't he, after Sunderland? He was in that Sunderland documentary, wasn't he, quite a bit? He looks a powerful player, and I wouldn't take for granted that they haven't scored that many in October. Well, 1. Because the Luton have got a very leaky defence, and that's troubling.
It is. Yep. That's the thing that needs patching up more than anything else. You kind of get the impression that Madger doesn't score goals of his own ilk. The chances have to be created for him. He's not one of those sort of like Haji Wright who can create things for himself that we saw on Saturday. And the guy who does most of the creating is Tom Fellows, the right winger, who'll cut inside on his left foot. It's a good job we've never had a problem with right wingers cutting inside on the left foot, isn't? Oh, crikey, yes, we have. Most assists in the league, Fellows. Young England under-21 international, very, very vibrant winger. Old school, you'd love him, old school winger, and he looks his defender in the eye and goes past him, puts decent delivery in. At least we've got our left back. Oh no, we haven't even got our left back to deal with him either. That battle down that side is going to be key, and whoever goes in there, and we'll discuss that shortly, it's got to work cut out.
I don't personally, unless he's pulled a fast one here, think that anyone's going to be back other than potentially Shandon Baptiste, which is not going to cover that particular side, that problem. So Luton have got a very difficult conundrum to solve there, and hasn't that been the way for all but like 5 minutes of 2024 really? But they've got a week to work on that, so that's a bonus.
It is. Yep. They've also, West Brom, got the man who Footmob, the statistics website, have as the best player in the championship rating wise, Alex Mauer. We've come up against him countless times, Barnsley in particular. Should be playing for Luton, shouldn't he, if he played for Barnsley? How did that one slip through the net? He's a very good central midfielder. He's experienced in the championship, got a good shot on him, can pass the football. Why isn't he playing for Luton? I don't know. He's another one that we need to, like Marlon Pack earlier in the season when we referenced him, he's another one we need to stop getting the supply line from.
That's true. But I mean, against Coventry, for instance, that they didn't even bother going down that route. It was they targeted Luton down the sides, which in theory you'd be okay with. It didn't work there, but whoever comes into the central midfield positions, I mean, if Baptiste is at all fit, then I think that we need to be seeing Nakamba, Krause, and Baptiste playing in those positions, and get some solidity really, and somebody who can put their foot on the ball.
Yeah, not likely to see Baptiste from the start, I wouldn't have thought. He referenced that he's only played 20 or 30 minutes in however long it was when talking about his cameo after the Sheffield United game. The other thing we should just reference with regards to West Brom, Rob actually called Mark Robins the best manager in the Championship, didn't he, in the lead up to the Coventry game? For me, it's the man we're coming up against on Friday night, Carlos Corberán. What he did with Huddersfield, and look where they are since he's gone. And he's got West Brom in the playoffs for the last 2 seasons without a pot to piss in. For me, he's the best coach in the Championship. He always sets his sides up defensively strong, no matter who. That Huddersfield side that we came up against in the playoffs had the best defensive record that season. Not necessarily the most flourishing going forward, which you would kind of expect a Spanish coach to be, actually, but very, very defensively drilled, as highlighted by the fact that they're the third best defence in the league. And yeah, for me, he's a top manager.
Yeah, frustrating one based on that Huddersfield playoff semi-final. I mean, but Luton, they had plenty of chance of that. Let's not go over our old ground, shall we? But yeah, the fact that they're defensive probably won't make for a rip-roaring open game, which might actually be a benefit at the moment to Luton, because we can't have it as free-flowing and as open as it was at Coventry, because it killed Luton. If it needs to be, nasty and tight and stuff like that, and if you can just like nick one here or there, which is probably what is going to be the prognosis for this one, isn't it? Because they're not that generous.
No, they're not, but, we're capable of scoring multiple goals against multiple teams. I mean, we scored in both games against Man City. They're not exactly known for giving goals away, are they? 3 against Arsenal last season. They'd only conceded 3 away from home in the whole season when they come down here. So I'm not worried about what the opposition defence is like. I'm much more worried about how scary they are in attack. And numbers-wise, recently, this lot aren't, but personnel-wise, they certainly are. But we have to be catching them at the right time, though, right? 6 games without a win, as opposed to the start of the season where they were absolutely flying top of the table. Maybe some of that was because they didn't play everyone. I know they played Leeds, drew 0-0 in a real stinker of a game. I remember watching that game. Absolutely terrible game of football. But surely we're catching them at the right time. 6 without a win. That's not a coincidence. That's stretched over more than a month. And even the international break hasn't solved that. So there's got to be some underlying reason why they're not winning games of football that we have to be able to find out what it is and feast on.
Yeah, in the sense of attacking them, but then everybody's finding the same in the reverse, aren't they? Against us, it just seems that everybody seems to be targeting all the weaknesses that there are, and they're doing it quite ruthlessly. And as much as you can say that, maybe we're getting them at the right time. Well, for a team that hasn't scored for most of October, or maybe they're getting Luton at the right time. That's a worry.
It is, but we'll have to make sure that that's not the case, and we'll have to muscle up. Now, that's obviously going to be difficult because we're forced into 2 changes here, and whether we like it or we don't like it, we have no Alfie Doughty, we have no Tom Holmes. I mean, is it just simplistic to say that the replacements have to be Joe Johnson and you have to force Tedamengi to play the game?
I don't think he's going to be fit, Tedamengi.
There is no other option other than go to a back 4, but
Yeah.
Are you going to go to a back 4 consisting of Johnson, McGuinness, Hashi and Victor Moses? Doesn't fill you with confidence, does it?
No, it doesn't fill me with confidence, but then the defence hasn't thus far this season, in whatever way they've been able to put it. But are you saying that it's still a back 3 for this, with a week to tweak it and a week to change?
I'd be amazed if they go to a back 4 with Joe Johnson in it. And it can only be Joe Johnson down the left side unless Amari Bell makes an amazing recovery. No sign of that on the horizon. When Rob gave his pre-match press conference ahead of the Coventry game, he said he expects to have Shandon Baptiste and Tedamengi back for this game. So if Tedamengi is back for this game, he's going to have to start. He'll start where Holmes is, and Johnson will have to play left wing back. There's no Rue Waters. He's broken his foot. He's out for the foreseeable. I can't see any other option down that left-hand side, whether it's 4 or 5, and I just don't think they'll trust Joe Johnson in a back 4. I think they'll give him 3 centre-halves inside him.
So you're saying he plays, but in a 3?
But on the left wing where Doughty plays, not
Right.
left centre-back.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
I just can't see any other who could play left wing back or left back other than Joe Johnson. I don't see that option in the squad. Of course, we know it was Rue Walters because we played that at Sheffield United, but that option's not there no more. We can't, even if we wanted to switch Victor Moses over and play that side, we would then leave the right back void, and we haven't got anyone to play there either. So it is only Joe Johnson who could play. And they're not going to play the other young lad who was on the bench against Sunderland. They're not going to give him a first start whilst you've got Joe Johnson there. So it has to be Joe Johnson. It's just whether he plays left back in a 4 or left wing back in a 5. And given his inexperience and the quality of the guy he's up against in Tom Fellows, I would be amazed if he doesn't play him in a 5 with the left centre half, which again I can only see being Mengi, sliding over that way to kind of give him a bit of help where he needs it.
Yeah, I think that probably makes the most sense. Not that it's the most thrilling prospect at the moment, but I want to have him. I don't have Joe Johnson thrown in the deep end so much, but needs must probably.
Well, there is nobody else, is there? Unless, like I say, Amari Bell makes an amazing recovery. But I mean, you've been to the last 3 press conferences. His name's not even been brought up at the minute. That tells me he's nowhere near, because he does generally name ones that he's not far away from, like Shandon Baptiste, for example, on Friday. That tells me that Bell's nowhere near close yet.
I don't think so. Yeah, when he had the hamstring the last time, he was out for a very long time. I think we did ask him if it's the same thing, but it was a different leg.
But he had surgery that time, didn't he?
He did.
He hasn't had surgery this time, so that should speed up the process, presumably, although I don't know how these things work. Maybe surgery takes some of the recovery time off. I don't know.
Well,
Either way, there's no vibe that he's going to be playing Friday night.
No. And any time a hamstring's been in the equation, it seems to be 2 months, doesn't it? So we're not at 2 months.
There's also no vibes that Reece Burke's going to be fit for Friday night either, is it? We're recording this as we always do before Rob's press conference. That press conference is going to be taking place after we want to get this out to you. So unlike for the Coventry game, you're not going to hear Rob's pre-match thoughts in this podcast, but of course it'll be in all of the usual places, reported on the Lutonian.com on Thursday afternoon as well. But so we're kind of reading between the lines and hinting at what he's been saying. There's been no vibes that Reece Burke's going to be back. So the only 3 central defenders I can see him possibly having to choose from are Mengi, if he's back fit, Mark McGuinness and Daiki Hashioka.
How are we here again doing this about fucking defensive availability? It's just never ending, isn't it? Never ending.
No, it's not. But that would be the back 5 for me. Now, the big question here, not so much in this game as a solo entity, but as a 3 games in 8 days entity, of which 3 go in the midfield. Now, if Marvellous doesn't play in this game, that's fine, but he has to play more of a role in the next 2, right? We can't start West Brom. Well, we can, but I don't want us to start West Brom, Cardiff, and Middlesbrough with Crouch, Chong and Clark. Now, I'm fine if they're the 3 on Friday night, because like you say, you've had a week to recover. I'm kind of okay if they're the 3 against Cardiff, because you've gone Friday to Wednesday there, so it's 5 days. But if they are the starting 3 in those 2 games, they cannot possibly start together at Middlesbrough. And I wouldn't start Clark at Middlesbrough. I know he scored there last time we were there. We covered it all in the Coventry review. His away performances are not helping us one little bit. But for this game, I'd have no problem if it is Krause, Clark and Chong to start the game.
No, not for this one, because you've had a whole week to prepare for it. It can't happen again that there's no changes for the games that come after that. And obviously we'll come to those podcasts when we come to them. But that's the major thing that you've got to learn. The defence is as threadbare as it pretty much has been for the entire year.
Although in a way, with the 3-game week in mind, if we can get through Friday, it's positive that Holmes and Doughty won't do one of the 3 games. So come Middlesbrough, they'll be a bit fresher than the rest of them. Would we want to go into West Brom with Joe Johnson and a potentially patched up, banged up Teddy Mengi? No, but that's the card that's been dealt to us. I mean, I said it in a podcast last season. It actually flashed up on my YouTube memories that he went into poker went into a game of poker with cards. Well, he ain't even in cards this time, is he? I don't even know what he's got, Monopoly chance cards or something. It's not a fair fight that he's going into, but at least when he gets Doughty and Holmes back, they'll be completely fresh, having had 10 days without any football.
Yeah, that's a bonus for further on down the line, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, for this one, it's, the defence, I think, probably after this discussion picks itself. But the midfield, there's still options, and if you don't use them, then you ain't learning anything.
No, would completely agree with that. Front two's the front two. They're not changing. Just scored for in the same game for the first time this season, and they should be the front two. They're arguably the best front two in the division. Coventry, quite rightly, argue strongly. Obviously, most other teams play with a three anyway, and just one through the middle, a bit like West Brom are going to do to us here.
Are West Brom going to have something to say about that? That we just talked about Madger a bit, so
yeah, but he's only a one, isn't he? The best front two partnership,
right.
in the division. Most people play with a solo striker, don't they? So it's it's probably a tame argument, but they are two really good forwards, and if this West Brom defence is going to come under any physical threat, it's these two that will put them under it. And but yeah, I mean, we're going to have to change some pattern of our play, aren't we? Because we rely so heavily on set pieces. Well, the quality of delivery isn't possibly going to be as good here because there's no Alfie Doughty putting them in. And I saw a lot of people after Coventry on Saturday criticising the fact that we do the same corners and everything. I mean, Sky did the build-up to the Sky game. They had a graphic on the screen, didn't they? And Alfie Doughty is a country mile clear of chances created from set pieces in the Championship this season. His delivery is not the problem. The people on the end of his delivery is the problem, and that's the thing that can change long term. But we did score 2 corners against Watford, and things are improving on that. But there's no Alfie Doughty to put the ball in. So the first question would be, who's going to take the set pieces? Victor Moses would be what most people would assume, but he doesn't tend to be right in the mix when we're attacking set pieces. He's kind of the one that stays back on the halfway line. So if we put Victor Moses as the corner taker, do we then have someone to replace him on the halfway line? If not, it's going to have to be another corner taker, right?
The fact that we don't know is a bit worrying, isn't it? Because there should be a backup but we haven't seen it. It's not been used. My guess is if you're going to stick a ball down and tell somebody they've got to whip it into a certain area, that Victor Moses is going to be the best man for that job, considering the quality that he's got and had over his entire career. I'd start with that and then worry about the other aspects, or have these 5 days to go. Somebody else is going to have to do that job because Victor's going to be taking the stuff. Now, maybe this is a good thing in terms of set pieces, that Doughty isn't always taking them, and there's a bit of variation. If whoever comes in, I'm saying Victor, can grasp the nettle and show that there's some quality there as well from somebody that isn't named Alfie Doughty. These are the sorts of things we're grasping at, really, basically, because so much of it does come through Alfie.
Yeah, I'd agree that there needs to be a backup to him, but when Doughty's on the pitch, I'd have him taking all of my set pieces because his delivery is very, very good. Just because we don't score from every single one, we win the first contact on most of them. I think Mark McGuinness is on something like 15 headers from set pieces this season. That's 15 headers. We haven't even played 15 games, so he's getting on the end of more than one a game. Now, we need to find a way to transfer that header to the back of the net more often than what we have done. It's not the cross that's the problem, but yeah, of course, I understand the frustration that we don't mix it up. I kind of get that, but yeah, we do need a backup, because what if Alfie goes off injured in a game, for example? Which, to be fair to him, he very rarely does, and that's to his credit. Yeah, it'd be interesting if it's Victor Moses. I think it'll be Jordan Clark. I don't think they'll take Victor Moses out of that role that he plays on the corners, where he's the one sweeping up at the back, largely because, one, Victor Moses got pace. If teams are countering us, he can kind of hold them up a little bit, but also he's got the quality to recycle the ball if it gets headed out to him. So I think it'll be Clark on corners and all set pieces, actually, and Moses will stay back and just do the role that he's been currently doing.
Like sitting here right now, I don't like that. I can't. I've got nothing more for you as to why. It's a gut feeling that I don't think that's a good idea.
When Clicker crosses and Mark McGuinness thunders a header in the back of the net, whack all your comments quoting that on this podcast, and we'll bring them up in the review podcast.
Listen, I'm trying to, take all the football karma and turn it on its head, the old switcheroo, because fuck all else gone right this week.
No, that's true. But yeah, that's how I see it. Who do you guys think will be the set piece taker in the absence of Alfie? Of course, if Shandon Baptiste starts, don't think he will. But if he starts, he would be the natural option because he's the one who's put in the most crosses in our team whilst in the games that he's played after Alfie Doughty. So it would make perfect sense for Baptiste to be a corner taker. Just don't see him starting. It's been out too long.
No, I don't. But I also just want him to. So can I just dream?
You can dream.
It'd be nice if we have the best midfield that I think that Luton have got and play them.
Yeah, I'm quite happy though with Chong starting here because the last first 45 minutes that Chong's produced, or last three actually, because he was good against Watford as well. The last three, because he was very good in that first half against Coventry, very good in that first half. Not only did he win the penalty, but he put in a couple of tackles as they were trying to get away from the box as well. There was one that actually looked quite nasty, but wasn't so bad when you saw it back on television on the right back. But it was like after an hour he faded. But that's fine. If we only get an hour of that Chong, then I'm good with that. We just got to sort out who the other half an hour is. And that goes in line with what we were saying in the other podcast. But yeah, I don't see Kraus not starting, nor would I want him not to start because he's also in fine form. Comes in here off the back of a brilliant assist. 2 assists in his last 4, I think it is. 4 or 5. So yeah, he's in good form. Chong, yeah, at home I probably don't have too much of a problem with it being Clark. Obviously when we go to Middlesbrough and we'll, like you say, we'll cover that. That might be different. That's not to say I want them 3 to finish the game, though. That's where we've got to learn. We've got to use these substitutes. I want 5 subs in this game, regardless of the situation. We have to think, boom, 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 use the 5 subs and preserve as much energy as we can into 5 players. So good that we're going to have 2 fresh players back for the next one. Let's try and keep it a lot fresher so that we just don't run out of legs like we did at Coventry. Set pieces are going to be a big thing in this game, aren't they? Because they're going to be a big thing the other way because they've got 2 tall centre-halves. And we're going to be quite small, aren't we, without Tom Holmes at the back? Particularly if Ted and Mengi isn't good to go and we have to mix and match at the back. Any set pieces we concede, particularly in light of the fact that we conceded 2 at the weekend, are going to be an issue.
Well, I mean, defensively, everything's an issue at the moment, isn't it? The goals conceded are worrying. The fact that we've got, 4 centre-halves now out? 5 now? Fuck knows. All of them anyway.
Too many.
Yeah, too bloody many again for 2024. It's certainly not the year of the defender, is it, in Kenilworth Road? That's for sure. It's going to be a struggle, whoever, because this is exactly what Luton did against Sunderland in the playoffs semi-final second leg. Recognised that they were injury ravaged, loads of little uns at the back, pump it in the box, Tom Lockyer, goal, head. So, that's what I'd do. Particularly if they're struggling for goals, that's just a percentage ball, isn't it? See what you can get off that. Makes sense. So I hope they're going to do nothing but jumping and heading practice this week.
Yeah, I mean, you can help yourself, can't you? If a ball is going out for a corner, bust your gut to try and get it and put it out for a throw-in. That at least alleviates some of it. I know they've got Furlong with a long throw, but he ain't going to get much of a run-up down the main stand side, is he? So, if you can avoid giving corners away and certainly avoid giving silly free kicks away around the box, then that will be to our advantage. We're just going to have to do everything we can to help ourselves here. Going the other way, it's hard to know really where we can really get at these guys, but I kind of get the impression that Victor Moses might get some joy down that right-hand side. Connor Townsend's now at Ipswich, isn't he? He was their left wing back. So if we can get somewhere, maybe it's through him. I don't really see a point in pressing high. They don't strike me as a possession. Well, they're not a possession-based side. No Corberan side is a possession-based side. We know the good thing is his Huddersfield and his West Brom sides are absolutely identical. They play for set pieces. They try and get the ball out wide. They put crosses into the box. They don't really press. They don't really play around at the back. So there's no real point in us unleashing a hell of a threat in terms of the press on them. So if we are going to get at them, I think it's get the ball out to Moses and see what he can produce and go from there, really.
So you're saying that they play exactly like we play? So it's going to be a set-piece fest?
Yeah, I would imagine so. They don't play exactly like we play because they're very, very defensively set up, whereas we try and win the ball high up the pitch. They won't be... I mean, they might change here because obviously we're missing 3 members of our back 5. But by and large, they don't win the ball high up. If you look at all the statistics, they're quite low down on possession one in the final third, whereas in the opposite to that, we're quite high up on it. At the same token, they don't bang the ball long, but they look to get the ball out wide. So the first chance that the midfielders get, the ball goes out wide. Whereas, so where we tend to press sides, they're not really going to have the ball for very long. That in itself will be a good thing when it comes to game 2 and 3 this week, because we shouldn't be running around like headless chickens all night on Friday night, touch wood.
Yeah, well, it's going to have to be a lot more controlled. Basically, maybe the first 2 games of the last week, 3-game week, there was too much of that. That's a hindsight thing. At the time, I loved it, but you've got to manage these players and manage the fixture schedule of those 3 games, albeit the fact that this one's on a Friday, so there's an extra day to recover. Yeah,
well, you would have thought that at the very least that we would have had someone at their game on Saturday, West Brom against Cardiff. I mean, the direct 2 next opponents. If you've not scouted that game in detail, then what are you doing? Of course, it can't have been anyone in the coaching staff because, they were on their way back from Coventry, but someone like Mick or someone of the scouting team surely would have been at that game with a fine-tooth comb, picking through the intricacies of both sides. And so they should know what they're coming up against. So they should be able to formulate a decent enough game plan. I mean, and I know Rob said in the 3 Counties interview, God knows what we're going to do on Friday, but that was slightly flippant and also slightly pissed off from the fact that he's doing an interview 5 minutes after full time, whereas last season the 3 Counties interview would have been 30 or 40 minutes after he's done the TV, national radio, and every other Tom, Dick and Harry worldwide. By the time he gets to 3 Counties, he's probably had enough and he's sorted himself out. Whereas this time it's basically full-time whistle, dressing room, 3 Counties interview, isn't it?
It is, but I think that's bringing an element of truth to it, as flippant as the comment is. I mean...
Yeah, but come Friday, he'll know what
obviously,
to do.
If he doesn't have a clue by Friday, yes, but on the Saturday against Coventry, you are left scratching your head as, I wrote that you're back to the era of whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and it is absolutely fucking bonkers that we are still deliberating on who could possibly make up a back line here. It's ridiculous.
It is, but there's no point crying about it. It's the situation that we're in. There are going to be 5 defenders out there. We've just got to back them. Well, I think there'll be 5 defenders out there. If it's 4, it's 4. We've just got to back them to do the job, They're all good enough to be in the squad. So if they're good enough to be in the squad, they're good enough to compete in the Championship. And they've just got to go out. I mean, in sort of top-level sport, there's always this next man up sort of theory, isn't there? Whereas, when the next person's called upon, they're ready to go straight away. And we just got to prove that we've got that. Whoever the people are, still got 2 legs, they've still got footballing ability, they're still, good enough to be in the Championship. If it's Joe Johnson, he's good enough to play for England under 19s. He's not a bad footballer. We've just got to put some faith and some trust in him and hope that Friday night is the night that he shows that he's more than good enough to be in the Championship. He's played Premier League football. He's played full matches in the Championship. He's not first choice. Of course he's not first choice. And you wouldn't want him to be first choice. But if you're going to be second choice, chances are you're going to play a fair bit of football, so you've got to be ready to do it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at I'm trying to put a positive spin on that. This is the places and the times where things are forced upon you, and this is where heroes are made.
Well, this is where James Justin was before.
You've got to try and grab it and run with it. You're right. James Justin is the primary example, certainly in the last decade of.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it in the Coventry preview. This is where Tom Lockyer was formed. Tom Lockyer going absolutely nowhere at Luton Town Football Club. Gave an interview to you after the Notts County game. Newport County game that we lost in the Cup that season, suggesting he may never play football for Luton again because he wasn't part of the first team and he needed the Capital One Carling Cup, whatever the bloody sponsors of that stupid competition are, to prove himself. And he'd lost that opportunity, and he was a real downbeat character. And within 6 weeks, he's on his way to being our player of the season. That's how quickly football changes. Now, Joe Johnson isn't going to replace Alfie Doughty on Wednesday night. We know that because Alfie Doughty is such a linchpin of our side. But that's not to say that with a really strong performance, that the next time that a centre-half goes down, he can't be relied upon to play there with a lot more regularity. He wants a chance. He's got a chance. Yeah. Now it's time for him to prove, in much the same way that Zach Nelson's done, that he's good enough for it. And we'll back him to the hilt.
Well, yeah, he will be because he's, an academy graduate. He will get that support, and that's a positive thing for him. I just hope he can. You're right. There's those two massive examples in the last decade that have really.
There's an even more recent one, isn't there? Ted Mengi last season came in as a development player. Don't think anyone really ever saw him being a first team regular until at least beyond January. Suddenly we've got injuries galore. Hey, there's a surprise. Has that brilliant night at Exeter in the Cup where he really did impress, and barely out of the side after that. It is the evolution of football, isn't it? That a reserve can only become a first teamer either with an injury or a suspension or a transfer. Well, two people have got the injury or suspension that they're looking for. Now they've got to step up and prove that and make themselves undroppable in much the same way. And we're going to have this conversation, if not this week, after the international break, that Tom Holmes has made himself undroppable.
Yes. Not unsend-offable, unfortunately, which would have helped things immeasurably.
But that sending off is only a negative sending off because we went and conceded. If we'd held out for 2-2 and he's pulled the guy down who could have gone in and scored a goal, everyone's like, well, okay, you've taken it for the team. It's unfortunate that you've been sent off, but you've saved us a 3-2 defeat. Because he hasn't saved us a 3-2 defeat, it looks a stupid sending off. To see where I'm coming from?
Yes, I see where you're coming from. I still think it's a stupid sending off, and highly, highly avoidable. But for the same sort of reasons, because he's just broke in. I make you right. Everybody's raving about him. And he has actually played a lot of games in the Championship, actually. I did forget that at the beginning of the season. He played a lot for Reading in the Championship, so he can cut it.
Scored for Luton for Reading in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. But, he's come in and he's been really impressive, aggressive, and good in the air, and positioning's very good and stuff like that. And the fact that he's done that and got himself out, I mean, given the injury situations that we've got, I imagine it'll be straight back in for the following game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely will be. Listen, even if we didn't have injuries, if all of a sudden every centre-back came back, I probably would still have him in the side, just because of everything that's around it. Look, that sending off on Saturday was mental fatigue. It's nothing more, nothing less, because he wouldn't have had to have lunged in for the first one if his legs were going, because he could easily keep up with pace with the guy. He's shown that in the first two games. He kept up with the Sunderland fellas, no problem, and Haji Wright was no quicker than the Sunderland fellas. And the second one, just shattered. Just physically out on his feet, shattered. His mental energy's gone. He's just pulled at him, regretted it instantly, never argued, knew exactly what was coming. You could tell by the look on his face that he knew what was coming. But ultimately, if the petrol tank has run dry, you don't suddenly think, oh, I've just got into the side, I won't foul now. You just do what is the natural instinct, and the natural instinct is to hold on to him, to try and keep us close to him. And he's just made it too obvious, hasn't he? I mean, he'll he'll pull someone's shirt another 15, 20 times this season and he won't get pulled up for it. It just so happened that he did it in front of the biggest prick that he could have done it in front of, and he got pulled up for it.
Yeah, you're right. You could have looked at Madley the wrong way and it booked you in that game. It's despicable, despicable officiating. And that wasn't even the worst one, was it? Really, quite frankly.
No, that was the other one. That you did get right.
The other one with Doughty, which was the other suspension. So thanks very much, Robert Madley. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I think Tom Holmes comes back without a doubt, and the argument is whether the other three that are out for longer term, how do they get back in when that happens? But bloody hell, I mean, that's going to be.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Can you imagine the day when we actually have defensive options to choose from? It's not going to be this one, but I think, going back to Johnson, he's got this is his big chance really, because he's had the chance against Burnley when he started, when the defence was in a similar position, and that didn't go well. So this is his chance at a bit of redemption and trying to force his way into the picture a bit more.
Yeah, in a position that he's much more accustomed to playing, as opposed to left centre back, which is an awkward position. He's also going to start this game. Every game he's come on in the main has been off the bench, and it's sometimes it's difficult to get up and running. So yeah, I'm sure we'll all get behind him, and hopefully we'll get behind all the boys. Hopefully it's a really good atmosphere. Friday night, usually they're good atmospheres under the lights, aren't they? And hopefully the boys can come out of the blocks, get in front, and the crowd can help them see it out like they did against Watford a couple of weeks ago. That would be handy. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. All that is left is score predictions. Jimbo 6-3 up on myself. Someone said to me on Saturday, the reason why, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I think there is an element to it. The reason why you're beating me is you always get to go first and sometimes take the scores that I was going to take. So we need to start alternating this, the people are saying, and we always give the people what they want, right?
Do we?
We do on this occasion, because it means I get to go first.
Right then.
And I think Luton Town versus West Brom ends 1-1.
Well, that's easy for me then, because I was going to go all day long 0-0.
Oh, this is going to be fun, isn't it? Yeah?
All day long, considering their recent results. And quite frankly, a 0-0 would be a blessed relief from a Luton perspective for me.
Yeah, I just take you back to the preview for Saturday when I suggested that Luton were going to keep a clean sheet. And the second I said it, I thought, what the fuck have you picked Luton to get a clean sheet for? I instantly regretted it. But I'm glad that you're not instantly regretting it, because I backed us to keep a clean sheet with 5 actual defenders roughly in their positions. You're backing us to keep a clean sheet with no defenders in any of their positions. So if that comes in, best of luck to you.
Yeah, I'm not picking that on the strength of anything that to do with Luton. I'm picking that on the basis of West Brom's results, and I'm just going with the flow.
Fair enough. 1-1 for myself, 0-0 for Jimbo. Let us have your score predictions in, and by the time that we get the review episode of this out, we will have worked out exactly how to get our leaderboard on there, and we will come up with some form of prizes towards the end of the season that makes it worthwhile getting your correct scores into us. That's all for the future, though. But yeah, do please keep your comments coming. Once again, these podcasts are going to start coming at you thick and fast after this West Brom game, because we have another midweek game followed by another Saturday game. So if you do subscribe, you'll find out exactly when each episode dropped. And we are closing in on 2,000 YouTube subscribers. It would be fantastic if we could get there before Christmas. That would be a really, really nice number. We've just passed 300,000 views for all of our YouTube videos, which we really appreciate everybody who has watched even just one of the podcasts, let alone all of the many that we've done since the start of last season.
Yeah, really pleased with that. I'd like a nice round number, and 300,000 looks very, very pretty. But then the next one is that 2,000 subs. So if you could, I know there's some of you out there, I know you watch, I know, just click that button, make us happy.
And of course, find out exactly when each podcast drop. Thanks very much to the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton for hosting our studio. Once again, guys, we're going to be in here far too often over the next week, so we really appreciate your support. We also appreciate the support of Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. If you have a ticket to the Kenilworth Road on Friday night. Be loud, be proud, leave it all out there for the 90 minutes. The boys, particularly those defensive ones, are going to need every single bit of noise that we can make. And who knows, together, stronger, we could come away with a valuable 3 points. From Jimbo and myself, come on you Hatters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.